Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Alyssa Mosier. We begin tonight in the Northwest Territories where Colville Lake Cemetery has been seriously damaged. The news comes just after the community lost its only church. A video posted on Facebook shows the cemetery littered with broken cribs that surrounded grave sites. CBC News spoke with the person who took that video and another resident. Both say they saw tire tracks across the cemetery, indicating someone had driven across it. The community's only church burned to the ground on September 16th. The damage has left some heartbroken.
It was devastating to see all those graveyards messed up, the crosses snapped in half, and seeing tracks over the graves, so they were running over them. It broke a little part of me because my brother's grave, too, was ruined.
Kakfui says she'd like to see the cemetery repaired with help from youth volunteers. In an email to CBC News, RCMP say they're investigating. No charges have been laid. The community's church fire is also still under investigation. Police in Fredericton say they've arrested a man in connection with the death of a woman with ties to the Northwest Territories. The man has been charged with one count of second-degree murder following the death of 42-year-old Sonia Timbri. She died on September 7th. The Acho Dene First Nation put out a release earlier this week in honor of Timbri. It says she was a lands manager. In an email to CBC, the First Nation says Timbri was working for them remotely. There is ongoing conflict with the nonprofit Carrefour Nunavut. It's a francophone organization that supports economic development. Its fired board of directors is holding an AGM tonight, while the interim board is holding one later this week. Carl Cardinal has more.
During an extraordinary general meeting on August 20, members voted to dismiss the board of directors. Following that meeting, a press release from Carrefour Nunavut accused the former board of ethical breaches, decision against the collective interest, and harming the reputation of the organization. CBC has not been able to verify these allegations. Benoit Havard is the interim director of the board.
The members met and wanted to be part of this extraordinary assembly because there were flagrant facts of conflict of interest.
But former President Nicolas Rodriguez disputes the August 20 meeting. He says the process was invalid.
They bypassed us and called the extraordinary meeting that we, the board of directors, did not call. That's why it's illegal. There was an agenda that we didn't do. They had the resolution of destitution that we did not make. They did not call all the members.
According to him, the allegations against the former board of directors are nothing more than an attempt to destabilize him. Rodriguez announced in a press release he will hold his own general meeting tonight. Meanwhile, Carrefour Nunavut warned members that the General Assembly called by Rodriguez is irregular and has no effect. Havard says the organization will hold its annual general meeting on Friday at the Franco Center in Iqaluit. Carl Cardinal, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A Yellowknife apartment building that was being renovated after a fire is back on the market, but it's got a new name and it costs a lot more to rent. Luke Carroll has more.
The building was formerly known as Sunridge Place Apartments. The apartment block has been under construction since March, when a fire displaced multiple tenants, many of whom were in public housing. But the building will no longer have the government-subsidized units. They are now being leased at market price. According to the NWT government, this doesn't change the number of public housing units in the city, and this is part of a larger shift in public housing.
Housing NWT continues and has had a number of meetings with Northview REIT senior management, and we are implementing a mutually agreed upon transition plan, as I mentioned. This was, obviously being implemented well before that fire event.
Martin explains the territory currently has a mix of leased and owned units. So in this case, Northview owned the units. The territory leased them and then offered a subsidized rate to those in public housing. The territory also owns some of its own units and rents them out at a subsidized rate. Martin says Housing NWT is planning to transition away from leasing units from private landlords like Northview. He says this was mutually agreed upon with the company. Northview didn't respond to request for comment. Martin says they'll still need private landlords in the medium and short term, especially for larger units to accommodate families. But the transition is why buildings like the one behind me have a new name and a new price tag. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A new support program for small and medium-sized businesses in Nunavut starts this month. The Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency is launching its Regional Tariff Response Initiative. Tharsha Ravichakravarthi has more.
The Canadian Northern Economic Development Agency is using tariffs as an opportunity to help impacted businesses in the territory diversify their markets. The agency says it will take a while for Nunavut to see the effects of tariffs, so they are working ahead to minimize consequences for consumers. Robert O'Bey is the Regional Director of Operations for CanNor in Nunavut. He says it's important for businesses to look for opportunities in Canada.
Well, the support that RTRI is expected to deliver to the medium-sized businesses and for sector assistance, for example, will be essentially helping them to find new markets, new clients. We're hoping that this will help them achieve more trade, for example, within Canada itself, and essentially making these companies and these sectors stronger and more resilient to any future trade disruptions that might occur.
O'Bey says tariffs will likely lead to job losses and a drop in overall GDP. Derek Butler is the executive director of the Nunavut Fisheries Association. He says more market opportunities could mean an increase in value.
Markets are like ships at sea. They take a long time to turn and change. So it takes a lot of work to go into a marketplace. But we're looking at that now with the supports that the government has announced, and with support from CanNor, we hope that we'll be able to do more to develop market diversification.
Butler says NFA contributes more than $100 million to Nunavut's GDP. At the moment, CanNor says RTRI hasn't received any applications yet. Tharsha Ravichakravarthi, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The city of Iqaluit is lifting a 7-year ban on car washing, and many residents say they couldn't be happier. Manu Mubarak has that story.
And honestly, it is just the talk of the town this morning. Everybody's talking about, I can wash my car. It's wonderful.
Anne Crawford says lifting the ban comes as exciting news. She's a long-term resident in Iqaluit. She says she's excited to be able to wash her truck.
You know, we see the clean trucks going around and we go like, oh, that guy's probably breaking the water ban. But now we can all have clean trucks, which is great.
She says people have resorted to cleaning their vehicles in a body of water close to her home, and that she also wonders what the long-term plans are to conserve water as the city is growing. The ban was first introduced in 2018. It was meant to help conserve the city's water supply because of low water levels at its reservoir. But the city says the demand for water has been trending downwards over the past 3 years. Councillor Amber Glukark says that despite the ban being lifted, conserving water is still important.
I just want to ensure that Inuit don't take advantage of this too much to the point where we do need to put the ban in place again.
The city says they will continue to monitor water levels and can reinstate the ban. City Council unanimously voted in favor of having it lifted at a council meeting last night. Mahnur Mubarak, CBC News, Iqaluit.
The future is everything. Stories of incredible ingenuity, dedication, and some extraordinary teamwork. This is parenthood.
Take a voyage with me to the vast, remote, most extreme place on Earth.
For many, this will be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Where the effects of climate change are intensifying.
The poles are a very rapidly changing place.
And geopolitical cracks threaten peace and stability.
Do you think there's a security concern?
I definitely do.
Experience the historic all-Canadian mission. CBC in Antarctica. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Want to get the most out of CBC News? Use the app or cbcnews.ca for live breaking news on the stories that matter to you. Whether it's local, national, or around the world, turn to CBC News.
It makes sense that they get a larger share, or does it?
Welcome to the Greenbelt.
All of this, just single detached homes.
Yes.
What do we know? I think we can explain.
About that with Andrew Chang.
Although the NBA currently is flooded with Canadian players, this was not a reality.
A new immigration law.
This story, it's directly tied to all those families who made a brave choice to come to this country.
My favorite word.
Tariff!
How seriously are you taking this threat?
It's the uncertainty that's the biggest issue.
Canada, we got you.
Elbows up!
A Palestinian Canadian in Yellowknife says the formal recognition of the state of Palestine has come too late. This week, Canada was among several countries to take the step. It's a response to the conflict in the Middle East and the ongoing humanitarian crisis in the region.
I wake up in the morning.
This coffee shop owner in Yellowknife says he is proud to be Canadian right now, but says much more needs to be done.
First, stop the genocide. First thing, before even recognition. And then after that, I want the recognition of Palestine and also even send the troops to Palestine to support the people there, to help the people, open the hospitals, bring them food, not just words.
More than 60,000 Palestinians have been killed, according to Gaza health officials, as reported by the UN. And nearly 2 million people are facing extreme hunger, all since Hamas launched an attack on Israel nearly 2 years ago. Qassam says he hasn't heard from his family in Palestine in months. He expects the worst. Though the situation is still dire, Qassam says he does believe there will be an independent Palestine in his or his children's lifetime. The re-elected president of Inuit Tapiri Kanatami says he's waiting to see this fall's federal budget to know how committed this government is to Inuit-led initiatives. Natan Obed has been the president of ITK for 10 years. He was just re-elected for his 4th term. Obed says the federal government has to realize that Inuit are at the forefront of Arctic sovereignty and security.
This is a point that may be lost on a lot of people, but or under-realized, but we use the entirety of our homeland. So on any given day, there are hunters and families who are the eyes and ears of what is happening in the Arctic for Canada. Yes, there are satellites, and yes, there's more coverage than ever before, but really we are underpinning Canada's safety, and that consideration has hardly ever been given any thought. And we hope that this government will be more progressive in the way that it includes Inuit in its considerations on how it makes decisions. I think the first thing that I think of as my job is to ensure that Inuit from across Inuit Nunangat or wherever Inuit live feel as though their national organization represents them, and that Inuit regions feel as though the decisions that they make together at the national level have been then implemented dutifully, so that whenever I'm speaking, and even to you today, that I am best representing the voices of Inuit leadership, and that there is pride in Inuit unity from Paulituk all the way to Hopedale in Nunatsiavut. And it's a special thing, but seeing Inuit unity and seeing people come together over a common cause and such a small population making such a big impact on the national stage, it's only possible through unity. And so I want to do whatever I can to preserve it.
With the Arctic Winter Games less than 6 months away, the host society is hoping to recruit more volunteers. Whitehorse is hosting the event for the first time since 2012.
This is what's exciting, is that you can outline the areas in which you're interested in. If you are someone who's outgoing, you might want to learn to be an announcer at some of the games. If it's someone who just wants to be in the background, they can help with access control, with seating people in venues. We'll need lots of people who are just helping with information, and athletes need information when they're here. There's 2,000 athletes and coaches and cultural participants coming. So we'll also need people to help in the area of culture. We'll have the marketplace available. There's people that will need to park cars. There's just, it's vast. And the cool thing about volunteering at a multi-sport event is that you get to meet and work with people you never would have ever met. And then you're friends for life.
On Saturday, the host society unveiled the official volunteer uniform for the Games. Volunteers can register online or at the Society's office on Main Street in downtown Whitehorse. The Games will take place from March 8th to March 15th in 2026. Well, 2 Whitehorse chefs are crediting homemade ingredients for their restaurant's recent success. Their open-air restaurant, Cork and Fork, earned a TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice Award for 2025. Reviews and ratings on the site from the last 12 months put Cork and Fork among the top 10% of restaurants worldwide. What makes the restaurant unique is how and where Cork and Fork operates, a caravan located in an RV park south of Whitehorse.
A big thing is that we do nearly everything ourselves. Really, everything is homemade from scratch as we can. So it's not, like I say, it's not opening a bag of frozen pre-made stuff, putting in the deep fryer. So our fries are the Belgian way, so washed, double rinsed, double cooked. So everything is really like authentic. And in the beginning, we were asking ourselves, is it going to be appreciated? Are people going to notice the difference? And it looks like, yeah.
Yost says making everything from scratch comes with some challenges, including occasionally running out of certain ingredients. But she says that's all part of running a restaurant. Cork and Fork is now closed for the season. It will reopen next summer. A new report says the world's oceans have crossed a dangerous threshold. Scientists with the prestigious Climate Research Institute say life below and above the sea is at greater risk. And they say CO2 emissions from fossil fuels are to blame. The CBC's Inayat Singh reports.
Whatever the hell happens, this climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
U.S. President Donald Trump attacking the scientific consensus on climate change in front of the world at the United Nations on Tuesday and pushing for burning more fossil fuels. But those fossil fuels have pushed the world's oceans into dangerous levels of acidification, according to a new report.
Just like when we add carbon dioxide to Coke, soda, that makes the soft drink more acidic. Adding carbon dioxide to seawater also makes that water more acidic.
Ocean acidification lowers the ability of the oceans to suck in carbon from the atmosphere or support fisheries that feed billions of people in coastal communities.
The ocean's taken up a third, essentially, of our anthropogenic CO2 emissions since the pre-industrial time, and 90% of the heat content from global warming. And imagine if all that heat was still in the atmosphere. Our lives on land would be so much worse right now.
Acidic waters corrode the shells of creatures like crabs, clams, shrimp, threatening them and the rest of the interconnected sea ecosystem.
If you're talking to, the shellfish industry and communities that are very intimately, connected to mussels and oysters and other calcifiers, organisms that build shells, they will be able to tell you that they're worried.
The wake-up call comes as countries realign their climate priorities with the exit of the US under Trump from climate diplomacy. Crossing those boundaries, the experts say, is another sign the world needs to stay on course for transitioning away from fossil fuels. Inayat Singh, CBC News, Toronto.
It's now full steam ahead for NASA's Artemis 2 mission. Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen will blast off early next year, along with 3 American crewmates, for a trip around the moon. As Nicole Mortallero reports, the crew shares updates on the mission from Houston.
We have great plans, but the most important thing we're working on refining and honing is how do we handle the unknown? We have this great group of simulation trainers who come up with these sort of evil tests for us. And we'll be sitting in the sim, all our mission controllers are in mission control, and then stuff will just start breaking. You're like, oh, come on, really that? And then we'll just have to see what we can create to come home.
The mission, it's a test of the spacecraft, because you have to remember, nobody has ever flown in this spacecraft before. It's gone around the moon, but uncrewed. So they want to test certain aspects. How does it function? One of the most interesting things is when they launch, they will be orbiting Earth for 24 hours. They're going to actually test the spacecraft. Also, they're going the farthest anybody has ever gone. It could be anywhere from 7,400 kilometers beyond the moon or 11,000. So this is pretty great, and it's a great opportunity for Canadians.
And to my fellow Canadians, you should also be extraordinarily proud that we are represented in the Artemis program. And it wasn't a gift, you earned it. For over decades now, you have responded to that call, to that opportunity with a can-do attitude.
And his crewmates have nothing but wonderful things to say about him. And just interesting to note, earlier during the press conference, the Canadian flag was actually on the stage, but then was removed for some reason, and we don't know why. And a few people were quite upset about it, not necessarily Canadians either, but eventually they did put the flag back on the stage, and we fly that flag proudly. Nicole Mortallero, CBC News, Houston.
A new play explores our relationship to the Northern Lights. And after a world premiere in Yellowknife over the weekend, it's heading on tour across the Northwest Territories. Renata Arluk's newest show is called Kikuriak, meaning Aurora Borealis, in Inuvialuktun. Setup is underway in Inuvik for the second stop on the production's tour. The show features Indigenous and non-Indigenous actors from Canada, Greenland, Alaska, and the Sapmi territory of Northern Europe. It tells the story of 2 siblings born in the North and features Northern wisdom and jokes, which Arluk hopes will resonate across audiences.
But and it's like, will this be as funny as somewhere else, like in Greenland? Maybe not the Easter eggs, right? But the relationship and the connection and the Northern humor will always resound. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty sweet to be able to bring those little Easter eggs here first.
The show will tour to Fort Simpson, Hay River, and Fort Smith over the coming weeks. Well, fall-time caribou hunting season is underway in Rankin Inlet, Nunavut. CBC's Noel Kalujak caught up with some hunters who are drying skins. It's a challenging activity, but when done right, they say it can be very rewarding.
Caribou is one of the most used animals in the North for food and clothing. There are many different ways to cut the useful parts and proper way to dry the skins. Peter Tapate is a community member of Baker Lake. He practices drying caribou skins the traditional way, and he shares his knowledge every chance he gets.
The skins are very valuable. To dry them properly takes practice, and some do it a bit differently. I like to make sure the skins are facing the sun and wind and turn the skin facing the ground in the evening to prevent dampness.
Johnny Mamngak was raised on the land near Akbet, and he watched his parents drying caribou skins. He says it has to be done right or the skin will not be useful for anything.
The skin is laid on the ground as soon as it's taken off. Also, in the winter, we lay it on the ice to let it freeze so we can use it as a tarp or under the bedding. There are many uses for the skin.
Once the skins are dried properly, they are used for sled cushions, bedding, boots and mitts, and many more. That knowledge has been passed down from generations. Some hunters say caribou is the warmest clothing of all. Noel Kaludjak, CBC News, Rankin Inlet.
Well, that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, of course, you can check out our website, cbc.ca/north. I'm Alyssa Mosier. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.